HannaTalk.
What is up, Cowboy Bebop fans? Simon here. Welcome to HannaTalk. Hope you're all doing fantastic. And happy Orthodox Easter to all my homies out there. And today I'm here with a very special guest. Now, he is a voice actor who is best known to fans, in particular the show Jet Black from Cowboy Bebop, or as Jet Black from Cowboy Bebop. But he's also been best known in series such as Rurouni Kenshin, Cyborg 009, Naruto, Digimon, as well as been working on series for the last few years such as Last Hope, Godzilla, Super Crooks, the Star Trek universe, and so much more. Please welcome back to HannaTalk, the amazing Beau Billingslea.
Hello everybody, great to be here, Simon.
It's absolutely fantastic to have you back. Beau, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm very blessed. I had my chance to enjoy some COVID. I've recovered and I feel good.
That's fantastic. And that actually goes into my first question here with, obviously because of what's been happening with the virus and pandemic over the last few years, how have you been keeping things up, especially on the acting side of things?
Well, we do a lot from home now. A lot of recording from home, obviously, the voiceover stuff. I do auditions for commercials here at home, and then I send them in, and auditions for theatrical things as well. So it took a while for it to get going, but our techno geeks figured out a way so we could continue to do stuff during the pandemic. But actually, now we're starting to get back out there. I went in person on an audition yesterday for a commercial, so it's nice to be back out in the world.
That's fantastic, and that's definitely true. Looking across, especially over the last few years, in that animation was kind of the one industry, the animation of the voice acting industry, was kind of the one industry that was managed to keep going throughout the virus and the pandemic, whereas the live action stuff was a little bit trickier in that regard, and they had to obviously work around with restrictions in that. And that's something and that's also the other thing I noticed, in that a lot of voice actors have their own home studios now, but they've had those before the pandemic and the virus had even taken place, which is fantastic.
Right? Yeah. It's those of us who had a studio beforehand. We were ready. We were ready when everything started being done from home.
Yep, just basically getting ready for the incoming apocalypse.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we can see the future, and yay, okay, I'm ready.
That's definitely true, and that's just fantastic. Now, looking back over across your entire career, whether it's been in live action or in the voiceover world and in film and television, whenever you're playing like a main character or a character that's featured prominently across that project, do you have an idea where your character is going and in terms of the story, or is everything recorded and filmed out of context?
Well, with the voiceovers, a lot of it's out of context. We have to, like if we're doing a video game or even animation, the director will fill us in as to how we got to where we are today, so to speak, when I'm in the booth. And very rarely do we have any information beforehand. We don't have information beforehand. We just go into the booth and we see the copy there and we read it. A lot of times even the director doesn't really know in which direction it's coming, because we'll just get maybe 2 or 3 episodes and we do them at a time. So we don't really know what's coming up in the future.
Right. Well, that's definitely fantastic in that regard. And this actually goes into the voiceover realm. Now, as many people will know, that anime is typically based on manga. Have you ever read the manga for any particular work that you starred in or worked on personally?
I've looked at them, but I haven't read them all the way through. You know, I'm just too busy to do that.
No, but that's fantastic though, and that actually reminds me of a couple of interviews that I did a few years back over the course of the pandemic, over that time, and it was a couple of interviews that I did with Aaron Roberts and Amber Lee Connors, who both have spoken about how much they're huge fans of the properties they've worked on, that they actually read the manga for those particular properties before they even started working on the series at the time. So they walked into those shows that they've worked on having an idea for where the story was going and such. But on the other end of that equation, you've also got actors like Joshua Seth, who to many fans out there will know from the Digimon universe, who I remember this one interview, that same year, an interview I did with him where he spoke about of this advice he got from this one actor who said to him, don't go in prepared, just go in completely surprised. So it kind of works both ways, I guess.
Right, yeah. A lot of people like to work differently. Like some actors, like on camera, they like to rehearse a lot, and others don't. So it just depends. It's nice to have some understanding of your character's loop in the project, but I also understand the actors who want to go in with a clean slate, so to speak, who have no preconceived notions of anything, and to make those decisions on the spot. So it's just kind of a personal decision as to how you prefer to approach it from the actor's point of view.
Absolutely, and that's definitely true, and fantastic nonetheless. Anyway, now before we start getting across into more on the anime side of things, going into the live action stuff. Now, last interview that we did, I think which was about 6-7 years ago, I believe it was, we were speaking about a lot of the live action work you've worked on, specifically the Star Trek universe. Now, I've had the chance to see all 3 of the reboot Star Trek movies, from which was the J.J. Abrams led films, from the first Star Trek movie to Into Darkness, and I spotted your cameo appearance during the first one and the last one, and I thought you did I thought across the board all 3 movies were fantastic, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, JJ's a terrific director. He has a very clear vision of what he wants to do, what his objective is, and how to get there. And he also has the language skills to communicate it to the actor. Because that's very important for a director to be able to express his thoughts so that the actor can understand what he wants and to give him what he wants. So that's from that standpoint, JJ is a gift to the actor because he's clear in his vision, and he's clear with his description of what he wants, so that the actor can feel a comfort to give him what he wants. So yeah, JJ is. I had a lot of fun with him. A lot of my stuff that I shot never made the movie, and that happens. They shoot a lot of things, like in Into Darkness. Peter Weller saves me, and we have all of this footage that was never shown. I had a stunt double who was blown up when the rockets hit, and as I say, we had all this dialogue with Peter Weller between him and my character, and then he helps me from under the beam, and we go away, but that never showed. So technically, I guess in the Star Trek universe, my character died, although he really didn't.
Well, I think let's just be glad that that was not the case in that, because obviously the little cameo appearance that you had was great, and I really wish there was a bit more of that in the films itself. So you're not the only one that felt the exact same way.
Well, thanks for being on my side.
That's no problem at all. And I will say that actually, thanks to those movies in particular, I ended up getting a Star Trek uniform that was very much in the vein of the new Star Trek movies. I just really loved the look of what the uniforms were during those new Star Trek films versus the original and versus the next gen era as well. So, and I've got it hanging up in my wardrobe as we speak. So,
oh really?
Absolutely. So, if there's ever next time there's a comic convention, just and you happen to be there, just keep on the lookout for me wearing a Star Trek uniform.
I'll do that.
Absolutely. Now, going a little bit further into more of the Star Trek universe, especially now we've got Picard Season 3 with the final episode coming out very, very soon, actually. And there's also been the reports going about on Star Trek 4 in that whole news that was going back and forth with either it was going to be directed by J.J. Abrams or it was going to be done by Quentin Tarantino in a very R-rated in America, MA in Australia type of way, which I think was an interesting idea. What if there ever was the possibility for a Star Trek 4? Would you want it to be like an adult-rated Star Trek movie?
That would be something different. I mean, depending, they shouldn't go too far with that, but yeah, I think the fans will probably be receptive to that. The Star Trek world has evolved over the years from the original series and all of the many spin-offs. But yeah, I think that would be pretty interesting to see Star Trek in that light.
Absolutely. I think when I first heard the news about that, and obviously the reports that were going about over the last few years on that, I went like, that actually would be a pretty good idea and something a bit unique. It's the same deal that a lot of people have on the Star Wars universe. For example, going into the other end of that equation, because J.J. Abrams also worked on the Star Wars movies, specifically the sequel trilogy from The Force Awakens to The Rise of Skywalker at that time, and I was going like, would an adult-rated Star Wars movie or TV show be possible? And like, yeah, I would be up for that. But
They would do. It's just a matter of, I guess, the powers to be if they make to make that decision. But I'd love to see it. I'd love to be in it.
absolutely. And also my question out there, not just to you, Beau, but also to the listeners out there, which by the way, we're actually live streaming this as as well as I'll be putting this up on YouTube as well, is let me know in the comments below to all the listeners out there, do you want to see an anime-based Star Trek series? And leave a like or a comment if you really want to see Beau Billingslea cast in the anime series, because that would be so amazing.
I would vote for me.
Absolutely. That would be so fantastic. And Star Wars, they officially managed to do an anime version of Star Wars in Star Wars Visions, which we're about to get ready for Volume 2 soon, on May the 4th. So if Star Wars can manage to finally do the anime thing, it's now just a matter of Star Trek doing the exact same thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people have come to realize that they can be fans of both universes. You don't have to be one or the other. You can be fans of Star Trek and fans of, So I mean, that's a pretty cool overlap, I think, when like somebody like yourself that you're conversant in both universes.
Absolutely. That's definitely true in that regard, especially with going into the news about like how obviously Star Wars, going back into that just a little bit, how that was very much inspired by a lot of Japanese movies mixed with a lot of Western overtones and obviously built in a sci-fi world. That when I heard about them doing an anime series, it's like, it's about time.
Right.
But no, that would be fantastic to see, like an anime Star Trek series. If Star Wars can do it, then anything is possible at this point.
I totally agree with you.
Absolutely. Now, going across into the various other projects you've worked on, specifically on Cowboy Bebop, we had the live action series a couple of years back. Did you ever watch the series, and has that changed your opinion on anime being adapted for live action?
I did watch. I didn't watch all of it. I watched some of it. I enjoyed what I watched. I felt that they made some mistakes, which I don't necessarily have to go on record talking specifically about. But um, I enjoyed it for what it was. It wasn't like our Cowboy Bebop. Let's just put it that way. And I thought Mustafa Shakir, who was played Jet, I thought he did a pretty good job of playing Jet, and it sounded like at times that he was mimicking my voice, which was quite flattering. But I do think that they missed an opportunity that by not including the voice cast in some form. I was thinking maybe we could be at a card game at the end of every episode, or just something, and that would have brought the anime fans on board. And I'm thinking that it might still they might still be shooting it if they had given the voice cast a little bit more respect.
That's definitely true in that regard. I mean, having watched the live action series myself in its entirety, I felt like the series as a show by itself was fantastic and everything. But comparing it to the anime show, I will go on record to say that you, Stephen Bloom, and Wendy Lee will forever remain important to the legacy that you started with the series.
Thank you very much. And I think it's true because, like, when I go to conventions and have the opportunity to interact personally with the fans, they have kind of a nostalgic take on it because it was like their childhood, and so that I get that very often, and so people say, well, I will always be Jet to them, you know, and that's very flattering. But that's the human condition. If you listen to somebody voicing a character, for years and years and years, and then somebody else comes up, it takes a while for you to accept it, for your ear to accept it, and so that's I think that's one of the things that exists in our universe, that it's a nostalgic piece to so many people to say, well, you're my childhood. I hear that all the time. Your voice is the voice of my childhood. You're the voice of my childhood, and it's very heartwarming, and I totally get it.
Absolutely, and that's definitely true in that regard. And I will go into another record saying, and I've been saying this across in all the interviews that I've done, and I've been doing Hannah Talk for nearly 8 years now, and
Wow,
yeah, I know, a very long time at that fact. And
nice, congratulations.
thank you so much for that. And I will go on the record to say, if people were to ask me constantly, why is it that I go to comic conventions in particular, and I will say this to the day I die, it's to go to meet the voice actors. You guys are my rock stars right there.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you very much for that, Simon. And I get it. People come to my table, they're weeping. They're um, just so in love with the project. The music is just so absolutely awesome that it's like a love fest when I go to the conventions and interact with the fans. And there are so many unique stories as to how they got involved, how they started watching Cowboy Bebop. Sometimes it was my dad got me into it, my uncle got me into it, my cousin, and so many people they spread it one way or the other, and so it's very enjoyable to hear the fans express their love for the show and how they got involved in it, and how they tried to share it with as many people as possible. It's pretty cool.
Absolutely, and it still holds up as basically one of the best anime of all time. And I'm also really hoping that thanks to the live action series, maybe there is a potential for a revival series at some point in picking up where the original left off at this point, because that would be fantastic.
No, we'd love to do that. We've been lobbying Watanabe to do more, but he's always stuck to his guns and said, no, that's it. Because we did the series in 1998. That was, what, 25 years ago. And so I guess he's moved on, so he's not going to be doing any more, but we would love to. We've
Absolutely.
actually, at a couple of conventions, I think three different times, when the whole gang when we were all together at the convention, we did a live reading of one of the episodes, specifically Toys in the Attic. I don't know if you remember that one, when it was the old lobster and people got sick and all of that. Uh, but the fans really enjoyed our presentation of a live, voicing an episode of Cowboy Bebop live.
Wow. Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. And I definitely have seen that with a lot of the actors, especially in series, whether in anime or cartoons for that matter, where they've done live readings of really well-known episodes or episodes that have really resonated with fans for that matter. And I think that needs to be a regular thing at like conventions or something. It's just like let's get all the cast members from this one series just because it's the 25th anniversary or just because they're awesome together, and let's have them do a live reading together.
Yeah, that is it's a very special as well as for the fans.
Absolutely. But but no, that's absolutely fantastic. Now, going a little bit now, obviously going into other anime adapted properties in that sense, is that we've also had anime adapted for live action in Japan as well, specifically from the Rurouni Kenshin series as well. And that's the thing I've noticed about is that in when it comes to live action adaptations under Japan itself, those have tended to be a lot more successful versus when they're adapted here in Western cultures. What like do you think that we're ever going to see that one anime adapted for live action here in like the States for that matter, finally done perfectly?
Well, they've had a hard time doing it, and it's interesting because when I think about the live action Cowboy Bebop show, it just seems like they were smart people, they had a lot of money, but they didn't seem to make the right decisions with I think with storylines and with the characters, like the way depicted the character Vicious. Um, I don't get it. But as I said before, I think they would still be shooting Cowboy Bebop live action version if they had made the right decisions, like having us involved in the show, even a little cameo, because I think that would have brought the anime fans, because the fans are around the world, right? So that would have brought the anime fans in on board um, with the live action, because there was a lot of negative reaction when people heard that they were going to do it, and like I would be at conventions and people ask me, and I said, well, give it a chance. Let's just wait and see. We can't judge it before we see it. And but then when they did it, um, it was a bit disappointing, and I think that they could have, if they were smart and made the right decisions, they could have had a better product, a better piece of art, and also it would have been received better by the fans.
Absolutely. No, that's definitely true in that regard. And I think that's also the reason why, in that obviously this year we're supposed to be getting the One Piece live action series, in that they've obviously brought in to help work on the project the original creator of the manga to be involved in every step of the project as much as possible to hopefully break that anime live action curse at some point. So fingers crossed that
Yeah.
fingers crossed that the One Piece series is going to finally nail it this time. But based on everything that I saw from the sets and everything, from pictures and articles that I came across, it sounds like it's going to be a pretty solid result. And especially since the creator was talking about that he's involved in this every step of the way. So if they can manage to break the video game film curse, then the anime curse will be broken one day.
Right, I hope so. But sometimes they'll bring somebody like that on board, and then they don't listen to what they have to say. I think that there was a bit of that going on that went on with Cowboy Bebop, because Watanabe was not pleased with the series after the fact when he was, and the way what I read was that his opinion wasn't valued as it should have been, and so anyway. Um, they maybe they'll break the curse this time. Who knows?
If they can manage to
But
break
they
the
need to listen to the originator. I mean, they need to listen to that. Sometimes people think, well, I know more than you do, but if that person created the project, you should really listen to them.
Absolutely. Well, if they can manage to break the video game film curse over the last few years, then the anime curse will be broken one day.
I
So,
think so.
absolutely, absolutely. Now speaking about a little further on Rurouni Kenshin, we are of course getting the reboot series because they've been making so many announcements on the rebooted series. What's been your opinion on anime, like a lot of classic anime series being rebooted?
Well, I have no problem with it. It's just a matter of, once again, it's how it's done, you know, and it makes sense that, because like live action shows are rebooted, they redo shows from the '80s, and um, Hawaii Five O, or whatever, MacGyver, but they just have to do it right. I mean, that's, once again, that's what happened. I think that's what happened with Cowboy Bebop. You're increasing your chance of failure by not honoring the original in this certain key ways. So, like in Cowboy Bebop, making Vicious is, that character that they made him, which was different from how he was in the anime. Literally being a vicious guy, instead of making him like kind of a goofy guy. But yeah, rebooting. I think it's a great thing. If you had a success in the past, maybe reboot it and maybe you bring in new fans. Who knows?
Absolutely. And I think also speaking about a bit further on Rurouni Kenshin, regardless of how people feel about, like, with what happened with the creator in the last few years, I feel like there's no denying that Rurouni Kenshin was a fantastic series. And also because in the fact, by doing the reboot series, it means they're going to keep it way closer to the original story than how the original had tackled it, especially in the within the last season, I think, in how they didn't fully adapt the original story when it came to season 3, I think, after the Makoto Shishio arc. At least that's my opinion on it anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think my character I think it was Gohai, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I got my butt kicked by an 11-year-old, And I was thinking he broke my thumb and then he kicked me in my giblets.
No, but no, it was definitely a fantastic series nonetheless, and you did a fantastic job in the series without a doubt. And I will definitely go on record to say, in looking back at a lot of the reboot series we've had over the years, obviously we've had Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, we've had the Fruits Basket series, which are two of the best anime series, reboot series for that matter, in any anime series in a very long time. And you've also got series like Berserk, for example, that got rebooted back in 2016, which was not considered by fans to be one of the best reboots of all time. But it sounds like Rurouni Kenshin, all that's missing is to bring the original cast members back. And I would love to see you come back in the series. That would be fantastic.
I'd love to come back, but there's here in the States, we have a history of replacing actors, like in um, uh, Dynasty Warriors. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that video game. We did 6 or 7 of those, and then all of a sudden they changed the cast, replaced the whole cast. Um, the character Barrett I did in Final Fantasy Advent Children. Um, they replaced the whole cast in Final Fantasy for the remake. Um, and then they replaced me as Ogremon in Naruto in this new Digimon Adventures. It's a sad thing, but it seems like in Japan, their culture, they're more respectful and loyal to the voice actors, whereas here, for some reason, they feel like they just need to replace voices for some reason, and it doesn't make sense because people's ears are tuned in to hear those voices doing those characters, and then you start all over again, and it just seems to me that's not the way to go. But of course, not my decision. I'm just a voice actor who has to say the words I'm getting.
But no, that's definitely true in that regard. But I think honestly, if Fullmetal Alchemist and Fruits Basket could manage to get the most, if not almost all of the original cast members to come back for the reboot series, then I'm expecting it for Rurouni Kenshin, because that would be fantastic.
I hope so.
Absolutely.
I hope my fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Now, going a little bit further into talking about Naruto, what's it been like playing in the franchise, especially with the Boruto series?
Well, I've done it a long time, many iterations, and I love my characters. I have 2 characters that I voiced. I voiced the 4th Raikage, and I voiced Homura, who was one of the councilmen. So I would go from "Where's B? Where's B?" to "I am a councilman, and I will be making laws that will affect your life." So it was nice to have those two contrasting characters. Um, but in Baruto was kind of sad because I don't know if you're aware of my character. He was a big muscle guy, right? The fourth Raikage, he was a big, strong guy. And then in Baruto, he's old, so his muscles, the animation, my muscles are all saggy. And it was, when I first saw him, I said, oh no! My character's all sagging and getting old. So, but he's not in Baruto that much. So, but yeah, it was sad to see the animation, to see my guy from being this vibrant, big, strong guy to this old dude.
Wow. Well, I think as the expression goes, I think looks can be deceiving. So maybe one day they'll end up putting him in the spotlight when we least expect it, I guess.
That would be fun.
That
That would be a lot of fun.
that would be really great to see, and also a really big twist as well. And that's saying, don't judge a book by its cover. I'm still pretty strong.
Exactly right.
That's it. Now, and of course, having been part of the Naruto franchise for such a long time, what would you personally want to explore in the Naruto universe going forward?
Oh wow, that's quite a question. I'm not really sure if I have an answer to that. I haven't voiced, we haven't worked in that universe for a long time. But I would be willing to voice whatever they come up with, whatever the writers come up with.
No, that's fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And going into Digimon, as we were talking about, with obviously going with having the Digimon universe having been part of that for such a long time, and of course being such a really big universe, and even though we've got the rebooted series happening with the original Digimon Adventure series, will we hope to see you come back into the Digimon universe?
Oh, I'd love to, but as I said, they called me about voicing Digimon again. I mean Ogremon again, and then changed their mind for whatever reason, saying, "Oh, it's not much. We'll have somebody else do it." And so, because I didn't just voice Ogremon, I voiced Ohuramon, Sagittariumon, Parrotmon, Parrotmon, and I did a number of characters in that universe, but for some reason the decision was to replace me with another voice for Ogremon, and it was never really discussed with me. And as it turned out, he had more than they had mentioned. And it's kind of strange to have somebody voicing your character. You have to get over that emotionally. It's kind of an emotional trauma. I think I'm carrying some scars, Simon. I'm carrying scars from all of this stuff. Being replaced, I voiced two characters in Dynasty Warriors: Kao Ren, who became Sao Ren, and Dian Wei, and they replaced the whole cast with that. And Barrett in Final Fantasy Advent Children, and then Ogremon and Digimon. So I don't know what's going on, but it's something that the voice actor has to understand and has to get through it, because I guess at some point it'll happen to everybody. That a character that you just feel like you're him, and all of a sudden somebody else is doing it.
That's definitely true in that regard, but if they can manage to bring back at least a couple of the actors to come back, then who's to say that they can't bring the rest of the other actors back, even if it's in completely different roles to what they've done in the past. So I wouldn't surprise me if they made an announcement and say Beau Billingslea is officially coming back to the Digimon universe.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely, and into the other franchises you've mentioned about as well. That would be fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
I love all my characters. I love voicing my characters.
Absolutely. Now, looking across it, as speaking about before, we've had several reboots and revivals over the number of years over the last few years in particular. What's one anime or cartoon series that you've worked on would you want to see a revival of?
Well, clearly it would be Cowboy Bebop. There's no doubt about that. I love Jet and Spike, all the characters. We're a family. The voice actors. We met in '98 doing the series, and then we did the movie, I think, in 2000. But we remained
Absolutely. Fingers crossed, because that would be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and if they can do it soon enough so that we can use all the same voices, because it wouldn't be the same. I feel that if the four main characters, if we weren't the same voices.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned before, that you, Steve Bloom, Melissa Fun, and Wendy Lee, you will forever remain important to the legacy that you started with Cowboy Bebop. You guys are those characters too. Speaking on behalf of all the fans. So
Well, thank you very much, Simon. That means a lot. I'll forever be grateful that I was chosen to voice Jet.
absolutely, that is fantastic. Now, going across into the other shows and projects you've worked on, you've been working on shows for the last few years, such as Last Hope, Godzilla's Singular Point, and Super Crooks, as well as the video game Horizon Forbidden West. What was it like working on those projects?
Oh, it's just fun. It's just absolutely fun. Because when you do the anime, you don't have much room for ad libbing because the animation is already done, and you just have to make sure that the words are fit into all the flaps of the characters' flaps. But that's what we call his jaw movement, his flaps, and so. Um, and the video games are awesome. We have a little bit more leeway with the video games to put our personal touch on it, to ad lib a little bit, come up with some new stuff. And there was just a release of a new character in Tekken 8 where I'm voicing Leroy Smith. I don't know if you're aware of that. Tekken 8. It's a video game that they just announced. They just dropped the new character. So there's a trailer out with my voice as Leroy Smith.
Wow, that's fantastic. Now,
Yeah.
that's absolutely fantastic. And actually, going a bit further into the video game world, now we've had so many video game adaptations done over the last few years, particularly with Sonic the Hedgehog, The Last of Us, and just recently with the Super Mario movie. What's like one game that you've worked on would you want to see turned into a film or TV show?
Hmm. Maybe Mafia 3. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
I actually have heard of the Mafia series, yes. That would be a fantastic series to do, whether as a film or a TV show. That would be amazing, actually.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. But no, that's absolutely fantastic. And I think just because of the fact that so many video game adaptations have been done really well over the last few years, it wouldn't surprise me that much if they just suddenly announced we're going to be doing a Mafia movie or TV show. Because
Right? Yeah. Wouldn't surprise me.
absolutely. And just a question out there to all the fans out there, let me know in the comments below, what video game adaptation of Beau Billingslea do you want to see adapted into a film or TV show? And leave a like or a comment if you really want to see Beau Billingslea make a Stan Lee cameo in the live action film or TV show.
Please do.
Absolutely, that would be amazing. Absolutely fantastic. Now, looking across at like your entire career, because you've been working on both in the live action world and in the voice acting world, from an actor's perspective, what do you find has been the most rewarding to you in regards to acting, live action or in the voiceover world?
Well, it's hard to it's really hard to say. One thing about doing Cowboy Bebop, it really has changed my life because it's I mean 25 years ago we did that and people still want to see me, talk to me about the show, get my autograph. So that has been fantastic. But I've also done a couple of shows. One was a Civil War epic here called North and South. I don't know if made it to Australia, but it was in the 80s. North and South and North and South Book Two, and I had the opportunity to portray an enslaved person, and that was a real challenge. I meditated. I did everything I could to try to get into the bones, into the soul of an enslaved person. Think about what do they think about when they go to bed at night, what do they think about when they get up in the morning, how do they live their life so that they're not depressed all the time. Charleston, outside of Charleston, South Carolina, which is where I was born. And my parents also, that was the first time they ever came on a set where I was working. So that project had a very personal effect on me beyond just being a nice gig where I was making good money. And we also actually filmed in actual slave quarters, which was really bizarre, because you could feel the heaviness of the spirit of this stone room, you know. And then I did this series on Nickelodeon called Just Jordan in 2007, 2008, where I ran a diner. I lived upstairs over the diner, and my newly divorced daughter comes to live with me with her children, my two grandchildren. They live upstairs over the diner with me. And it's a sitcom. We had a lot of, a lot of storylines where I was the grandpa who was getting in trouble with my daughter and her kids, my grandkids, because I was doing capers with them, But the beautiful thing about that was that my granddaughter worked a lot on the show as she was an extra, or as they call them now, atmosphere. And the last show of the first season, the writers wrote a food fight into the show. And so we were in a diner, and my granddaughter was working that day, and one of the adults didn't show up, so my daughter also worked with me in that scene. And so, they're pouring Kool-Aid on us and smushing cake into our faces. And so at one point my granddaughter stopped and said, "Mommy, this is so much fun." And then she grabbed a handful of cake and smushed it in my face, poured Kool-Aid on my head. And that was a joy. I mean, anytime you get a chance to work with your family, that's, there's nothing better than that. So I really cherish that experience working with my daughter and my granddaughter.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And looking back at your entire career, and especially looking to the future now, where do you hope to see yourself with regards to acting and entertainment in the long run?
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of like in the twilight of my years. I'm of a certain age. And so I'm spending a lot of time at home with my kids and grandkids and my wife, and traveling with my extended family in terms of, I met some family members at a family reunion, about 10, 12 years ago. So then we've been traveling the world, and we went to Greece with some second and third cousins, and went to France with them. And we were planning to go to South America, but that's when the pandemic hit, and we had to cancel that out. But yeah, in terms of the future, I'm just kind of coasting along now. I'm not looking too hard for work. I'm kind of, in a certain way, kind of semi-retired, but I enjoy especially the voiceover work now at this stage of my career, because what I look like doesn't matter. But in the on-camera world, you get to be a certain age, and so I went from playing young dads, and it seemed like overnight I'm playing grandfathers now. But that's the way time marches on.
Absolutely. And I think this reminds me of a quote from the Disney voice actress Katie Lee, who I had the chance to interview twice. Last time I interviewed her was back during the pandemic at that time, and she described like how voice actors are like, in that we're famously anonymous, I think is the term that she used.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That's true, because people know you by your voice, not necessarily by your face. So, interestingly enough, I have a T-shirt. Well, I have a bunch of them. My wife bought me a bunch of T-shirts that they have there's an image of Jet Black on the T-shirt, and in the circle around it says Jet Black Coffee. So when I've been wearing it traveling, and it's so funny because it's amazing how many people in the real world are tuned into anime. This last convention I went to, last 2 weekends ago in Nashville, Tennessee, and MTAC, Middle Tennessee Anime Convention. guys, their checkpoints, and one of the guys saw the T-shirt, great T-shirt, and I said, you know Cowboy Bebop? He said, oh yeah, and I said, well, I voice Jet Black. He says, no way, he just he turned into a little boy. He was, he forgot that he was a TSA. Those are our security guys. I don't know if you call it by a different name, I guess, in Australia, but they're the ones who will search our bags and all of that, and make sure that there's no contraband in there. And then, oddly enough, the same thing happened on going through the check in Nashville, coming back to LA. A TSA person said, "I love that T-shirt." Nice. Basically, it was the exact same exchange. And there were flight attendants on Delta were all excited because when they saw the T-shirt. So thanks to my wife, now I'm absorbing all this love from a lot of people in the real world simply because I'm wearing that Jet Black Coffee T-shirt.
That's good promotion, I guess.
Yeah. Spread my brand.
Absolutely, but no, that's absolutely fantastic. That's really, really wonderful. And a bit of a fun question here is, what two shows have you worked on as a voice actor would you want to see a crossover between, story-wise and character-wise?
A crossover of two different animes, you mean?
Yes.
Oh. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with Last Hope, but Last Hope, the animation is he's drawn pretty much just as Jet is. He doesn't have the scar over his eye, but he has everything else looks the same. And so, when I was asked to do that, the director said, we decided you had to do this because they drew Jet, even though my character's name was Kane in Last Hope. That was on Netflix. I don't know if it still is. Might still be on. So yeah, it would be kind of an interesting overlap with Jet and Kane, Cowboy Bebop and Last Hope. Maybe Jet would be moonlighting at night or something as Kane. I don't know, but that would be a kind of a fun deal.
That would be a pretty fun show to watch, just like Last Hope and a Cowboy Bebop crossover. That would be pretty fun to watch.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, looking across at like the overall voice acting and animation industry, and especially within the entertainment industry as well, what's been your opinion on where the voice acting and the animation industry, what's been your opinion on where those two industries stand within the entertainment industry as a whole?
You mean where video games and what?
Yes, so just like the general voice acting industry and the animation industry as well, what's been your opinion on where those two industries stand within the entertainment industry?
Well, huge. I mean, like the voiceover world is absolutely huge, and because the video game universe is bigger than motion pictures. I mean, there's just more money spent on video games than on motion pictures. That's how far things have progressed. So, and as I say, anime has become part of the American culture now. Whereas when I was first asked to do an anime show, I didn't even know what it was.
Wow.
Yeah, it was in the 80s, and I was voicing. A friend of mine was producing these foreign live-action films, like there'd be a German film with an African character in there. And so they'd ask me to voice that character into English because it was originally in German. So into English. So I would say I did it for my father. I do a general African accent. And then one day he came in. He said, "You want to do some anime?" And I said, "Well, what's anime?" He said, "Oh, it's Japanese animation." I said, "Oh, okay." And cut to that was in the 90s, I guess, and early 90s, and cut to now, anime is just a part of our culture now. I think everybody, whether they're fans or not, they're aware shows that got people hooked on anime. Because I've heard that a lot too. When I go to conventions, the fans will say Cowboy Bebop is what the show that got me started in anime, and and it's the best ever. And so yeah, I mean, it's huge, and you see references now to anime in like in movies and TV shows. You'll see there'll be some reference to anime. So it's huge, and I guess in getting bigger as the younger people move up in the world, and because of the social media, information is spread so easily. Um, yeah, it's a big deal now.
Absolutely. Even though there's been that all that talk going about that, especially to a lot of people under such big companies like under Warner Brothers, especially under Disney, that still, especially that whole stigma attached with animation, in that people still view animation as like it's for kids, when really that's not even the case.
Oh no, not at all. Now there's, I mean, like Cowboy Bebop. I mean, that's adult animation. I feel anyway that it's not so much for younger people. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and so um, you have adults, and when I go to conventions, I get a lot of gray-haired men coming in now. Whereas years ago it was all young people years ago. But now it's older people coming with their families. It's really terrific to see a whole family together. Walking through at an anime convention, and they'll come to my table, and it's just wonderful to see a family doing something like that together. And
Absolutely.
and credit the older folks who are open-minded to it, because some folks of a certain age aren't that, they'll belittle it. Cartoons. Like I have a friend actually that I knew from Connecticut where I was growing up, and he was like, I hate cartoons. I'm a grown man. I'm not gonna watch cartoons. And I tell him, well, that's your loss, pal. And they're not called cartoons anymore. It's animation.
That's true. That is true.
Right. But yeah, I
Absolutely.
think more and more as time goes on, there's no stigma to it. The stigma will disappear. So these guys who think it is not manly to be watching a quote cartoon, they'll be out there watching it. And invariably, when uh, someone introduces somebody like the Cowboy Bebop, it's very rare that they're not hooked.
Absolutely. That is definitely true in that regard. It's like for myself, I mean, I'm 30 years old, of course, and I've been watching cartoons and animation since I was a kid, and I still watch it to this day forward, and I still absolutely love it and stuff. So yeah, it's true. It's definitely true. So that's absolutely fantastic. And with and without going into any spoilers, what's next for Beau Billingsley for the fans to know about?
Well, as I say, Leroy Smith, my character in Tekken 8, is it just dropped. You can check out the trailers there, um, and there's that's all I can talk about. You're always signing these non-disclosure agreements, and so you can't say anything till the project drops. So that's pretty much that just dropped. So I can talk about that now, and that's just about it.
That's fantastic. And to all the listeners and the fans out there, I'll be sure to put a link in the description below for the trailer as well, once this interview officially goes up. And final question, what do you think Jet Black would say if he was in Australia?
Hey, Spike, put another shrimp on the barbie.
That's fantastic. No, that's absolutely wonderful. And here's to hoping, because now comic conventions are officially coming back into Australia, which, speaking to the listeners and the fans out there, next Saturday and Sunday is going to be Supanova Comic Con in Australia, and we're also going to be having Oz Comic Con happening later this year in June and I think sometime in June and July. So here's to hoping we're going to get the Cowboy Bebop cast members to come down to Australia this year. Fingers crossed.
I'd love to have it in
Absolutely, that would be fantastic. Beau Billingslea, thank you so much. It's been an honor.
It was my pleasure, Simon, and see you all, you space cowboys. Eat your bell peppers and beef.
Absolutely. And is there anything you would like to say to the fans out there in Australia and in the world?
Well, I thank you for appreciating my work and watching and listening to me, and I hope you continue to do so, and I wish you all good health and prosperity.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. Well, guys, if you'd like to know more about Beau Billingslea, you can catch him on the new Tekken 8 game and catch him on the trailer for the Tekken 8 game, which I'll put a link to in the description below. And don't forget to check out the other links down below in the description once this interview is up. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click that bell, and be sure to comment below what you want me to do on HannaTalk, both the Facebook page and YouTube channel going forward. Thank you all so much for listening. This is Simon and Beau Billingslea signing off. Bye for now.
Take care, everybody.